Grenada. How are you today? 30th day. 30th day. We're almost at the end of May. So far, so good. Thanks a lot for joining us for today's edition of Good Day Grenada. I'm George Grant, and yeah, as always, got some good stuff planned for you this morning. I say good stuff, but the first story we're going to deal with this morning, hey, maybe there's good to it. I don't know. But it's sad news for some because, as you probably heard this week, Grenada has lost its second case in a week at the CCJ. Ouch. Yeah. Pros and cons about that one. Pros and cons. I'm going to share a couple of stories with you pertaining to that happening, or those happenings, if you will. Then we are going to get into the national report. And of course, today happens to be Thursday. So guess what? Haven't heard from him to the contrary, so I'm assuming that Mr. B will be joining us electronically by Zoom. Okay? That's your rundown. Simple, but a lot of powerful stuff coming in there. Okay? So, let's get down to brass tacks. First of all, let me take a look here. Quick glance, I see that Chester is saying good morning, and so is Margaret. Margaret, I'm your peep. Yeah, I guess so. You're mine too. All right, folks. Freedom of movement application fails at the CCJ. Just bit my tongue. Listen. Press release came from the CCJ yesterday, which opened eyes. Let me quote it for you. CARICOM citizens have important rights, but to exercise these rights, clear documentary evidence of their nationality is required. This was the outcome of the case of Bain versus Trinidad and Tobago that was decided yesterday by the Caribbean Court of Justice. Mr. Bain, a citizen of both Grenada and the United States, had claimed that his right to freedom of movement was infringed when he was denied entry into the Twin Island state when arriving from Grenada just before midnight on December 14th, back in 2017. He presented himself as an American citizen, producing only his USA passport, as his Grenadian passport had expired some years earlier. Upon arrival at the Piarco International Airport, immigration officials questioned him concerning information they had received about a man with the same name who has convictions on drug-related offenses. Although he denied any drug convictions, Mr. Bain was refused entry and was sent back to Grenada on an early flight on December 15th, 2017. Although he had also informed the immigration officers that he was a citizen of Grenada and thus entitled to freedom of movement in CARICOM states. Okay? As evidence of his citizenship, Mr. Bain had produced his Grenadian driver's license, which stated that he was a Grenadian citizen. He also showed his Grenadian voter's identification card, which stated that he was born in Grenada. In addition, his USA passport also listed Grenada as his country of birth. These documents, Mr. Bain argued, should be enough to invoke his right of freedom of movement, as explained by the CCJ in Myrie versus the State of Barbados. In its judgment, the court determined that while there was no doubt that Mr. Bain is a Grenadian citizen, he did not present sufficient documentation to prove it to the immigration officers. The presentation of the Grenadian driver's license and voter's identification card was not sufficient. Unlike the Grenadian passport, neither document was meant to serve as evidence of citizenship. In addition, they were neither machine readable nor designed to be stamped by immigration officials. The court also rejected the argument that the notation in Mr. Bain's U.S. passport that he was born in Grenada conclusively proved citizenship. It was noted that it was possible that Mr. Bain could have renounced his citizenship or have it stripped away by the Grenadian government, while mere birth in a country does not always automatically evidence citizenship. The CCJ considered whether Mr. Bain waived his right to free movement as a national of Grenada when he presented his U.S. passport. The court noted that if someone with dual citizenship exercises their rights attached to one nationality, it does not eliminate their other nationality and the rights attached to that citizenship. Therefore, if Mr. Bain was denied entry based on his U.S. passport, he could still claim his rights under the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas if he could forthwith prove that he is a Grenadian citizen. The court also relied on submissions from the Caribbean community, which stated that the appropriate travel document to invoke the right of freedom of movement is the CARICOM passport or a passport issued by a CARICOM member state. The CCJ concluded that all the documents Mr. Bain presented did not conclusively establish his Grenadian nationality. In the judgment, the court emphasized that the onus lies upon an intended entrant into a CARICOM member state to establish that he or she is a national of such a state with the right of freedom of movement, unquote. The CCJ dismissed the claims against Trinidad and Tobago and ordered the parties to bear their own costs. Confusing? Yeah. You know, I think we need to look into this one. We really, really do need to look into this one. Like I said, it's the second decision within a week. And the first, you probably heard about a few days ago, about the CCJ dismissing an application against Barbados, filed by the same attorney, by the way. And let me quote that one for you. The Caribbean Court of Justice recently dismissed an application for special leave in the original jurisdiction matter of Tamika Gilbert, Lionel Gilbert, Royston Gilbert, Glenner Gilbert, and the state of Barbados. The applicants were mother and father and two adult daughters. They were nationals of Grenada, seeking to take legal action against Barbados, having accused Barbados of violating their right to freedom of movement under Article 45 of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, and under a conference decision made by the heads of government in 2007. The family had visited Barbados for a day in October 2016, when they were arrested and detained for 6.5 hours. No charges were ever laid against them. Tamika and Lionel claimed that they were subjected to degrading treatment by the police, and Tamika alleged that she was made to remove a portion of her written statement recounting the degrading treatment before the police would allow the family to leave. The applicants therefore claimed that Barbados had violated their right to move freely within Barbados and to depart Barbados without unnecessary harassment or impediment. Barbados denied their claim and opposed the grant of leave, arguing that the applicants had not fulfilled the requirements of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas needed to commence legal action. The CCJ pointed out that the applicants were taken into police custody for the purpose of police investigations, and that freedom of movement did not immunize CARICOM nationals from the operation of law enforcement agencies in the receiving state. In addition, the CCJ held that the applicants would have to set up an arguable case of discrimination based on nationality only, prohibited by Article 7 of the revised treaty, in order to be granted special leave to bring their claim against Barbados. This they failed to do. The application was therefore dismissed. Woo! Ha! That's a lot of stuff there. A lot of stuff. All right. Let me see here now. I see that Mr. Bierzynski is already on camera wearing his Bob Marley t-shirt and pretending that he doesn't even know I exist. But that's okay. Oh, now he's giving me a finger. You don't believe me? Take a look. Show that finger again, sir. Yes, there he goes, acknowledging that we have acknowledged him. So, I'll tell you what, I don't like to keep this guy waiting. So, I'm going to take a little break, and rather than go into the national report, because B is here, we'll get him on, and then we'll do the national report. How about that? Deal? Now, in the meantime, you folk, was that your ceiling I was seeing there, sir? In the meantime, well, we've already said good morning to Chester and Margaret. Fitzroy is watching from a cool and cloudy New York. Pele Darbo is there this morning. Pele knows that Bierzynski is here, so obviously he's going to show up. Yeah. Kipling is sending his blessings as always, and Benedict says it's a thriving Thursday. Margaret says, not really. The only acceptable travel document is the CARICOM passport or a passport issued by a member country. That is the sum total of that convoluted statement. Yeah, Margaret, that's what comes out of it, but I wonder if that's the way it had been presented. You know, I think most people know that if you present a voter's ID or a driver's license that state that you're born in Grenada, you are a Grenadian. I could be wrong. I'm not a legal mind, okay? And I'm probably going to try and ask Bierzynski this and see what he has to say. And Benedict says his iPhone's giving him problems this morning. Okay, folks, I'll tell you what. Quick break, and then we'll come on back with Allan.
Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company, tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive, motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary, public liability, professional indemnity, directors liability, and wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody.
Boy, you, they gonna fly with kite now. The wind picking up.
I'm coming. Karim, what you doing?
Fly my kite.
Yeah, but not here. You can't fly kite near power lines, boy.
Why not? The wind good.
Because mommy say, kite threads conduct electricity.
Yeah, kite. He's right. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, it can cause power outages, or even worse, it can get shocked.
Come, let's go and fly them in the pasture.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kite threads conduct electricity. Do not fly kites near overhead power lines. This can lead to electric shocks and power outages. If your kite gets stuck in power lines, do not try to retrieve it. Release it and call GRENADA. Always fly kites in open areas. Keep your kites far away from roads. And remember, always clean up after yourself.
GRENADA, energizing our Grenada.
A natural disaster can change your life in minutes. Preparation is the best protection for your family and business. Prepare now. Create a disaster plan and make sure everyone knows what to do. Store water, non-perishable food, and medication. Remember basic emergency supplies such as batteries and flashlights. Trim overhanging trees. If trees near power lines are unsafe to trim, call GRENADA at 237 for assistance or advice. Install surge protectors to safeguard your electrical devices against outages and intermittent surges. For more information, visit grenadac.com.
GRENADA, energizing our Grenada.
Alrighty, folks, let me also say good morning to Ashton Fletcher, who is joining us from Louisville, Kentucky, and Andy Smart here is all saddled up and ready for the Bierzynski Chronicles. Andy, remove that Y, the last Y at the end of his name. I think it should be an I. Margaret says, my understanding is that the driver's license and voter ID are acceptable across the OECS, not the wider Caribbean. When it comes to travel, IDs and documents are a tricky business. Look at this gentleman up there, folks. Bob Marley's #1 fan. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. The reason I'm wearing the Bob Marley shirt is in remembrance of what Bob did in getting Michael Manley and Edward Seaga together in the National Stadium in order to try and bring peace between the warring factions in one of the Jamaican general elections. As you know, earlier this week, or was it on the weekend, Edward Philip George Seaga passed away at the ripe old age of 89.
Batted well.
Edward Seaga, I like his name. You can see his parents were monarchists. Edward Philip George.
George.
And when I remarked on his passing in another forum, I was taken to task by an individual who I believe considers himself to be a progressive. Because on the left, Seaga was vilified as a CIA agent. And it's all well and good to say that, but the reality is that in Jamaica, and in particular his constituency of West Kingston, which he represented for 42 years, he was seen as a man who represented his people well. And he is a distinguished leader in the Caribbean. He was, and so he will be remembered as such. But Edward Philip George Seaga also published a small booklet called The Inside Story of the Grenada Intervention. And in his conclusion, which I'm going to impose upon you and read it, because what that individual said to me yesterday needs to be placed in context. And so I read from the conclusion of the little book by Edward Philip George Siaga. The intervention of October 25, 1983 did not please everyone. Some still believed that Grenada was being molded in the doctrines of virtuous socialist ideals, which should have been allowed to blossom. But few would say that the good derived by the intervention did not exceed the abuses of the civil rights of the people who had no means of protest, without the imposition of vicious sanctions during 42 months of PRG control of the country. As polls subsequently showed, the people of Grenada were happy to be free again to choose their own future by democratic means and to remove the blanket of fear under which they were forced to exist. Grenada, by this turn of fortune, became a symbol in the region and elsewhere of the triumph of a greater right. This event also points to the futility of excesses in a system built on principles of moderation. The English-speaking Caribbean, while intolerant of extremes, is almost naive in the expectation of a solution for which the people will wait in hope that it will come from above. The resistance of the church was a salient feature in Grenada, but inadequate. What is left to be fully recognized is that deviant signs foretell devious results, that if not corrected promptly while still within the bounds of tolerance, will exceed the threshold and mutate into solutions which can themselves be problems for many future years. The rule of law, therefore, is still the most balanced and acceptable means of transformation in a society eager for change without chaos. It may be slower, but like the tortoise, it will eventually arrive first in the race between development and discontent, while others fall. End of conclusion. But I want to talk about the rule of law, therefore being the most balanced and acceptable means of transformation in a society eager for change. And the rule of law, unfortunately, throughout our little region, is being paid scant attention. I was speaking yesterday with an attorney who has close links with Dominica. And some of the events that he was describing to me that have taken place in Dominica in recent times beggar the imagination. Now, I know that you have at least two individuals who are panelists on your MECWE chat program on Thursday nights who are closer to Dominica than I am. And so I will not venture to take anything that they should be speaking about and speak about it myself, other than to say that when we see things happening which circumvent the rule of law, we need to sit up and take notice. And that brings us closer to home, because we've seen recently and heard that arguments are being made to the effect that government has not had the benefit of the best legal advice. I beg to differ. I believe that what has transpired is that actions have been taken in the absence of getting legal advice, in the mistaken belief that because we in power, we could do what we damn well want. And I think that is what we are seeing here. And the taxpayers of this country are being burdened by the results of this intemperate exercise of power to the abuse of the rule of law. Now, with regard to the accessibility to the CCJ, I want to congratulate those who have demonstrated how easy it is to access the CCJ, but have also equally well demonstrated how difficult it is to win a case.
I don't know why, but I saw that coming. I saw that coming, Mr. Bierzynski. Yeah. Uh, just sticking with Siaga for a minute. You know, I was listening to you intently, and I recall that the Prime Minister of Grenada also issued a statement, you know, his condolences to the Siaga family. But in that statement, I got the feeling that he was alluding to the fact that regarding the U.S. intervention, they actually didn't see eye to eye. Did you see the PM
Who,
statement?
sorry, who didn't see eye to eye?
Mr. Siaga and, excuse me, Mr. Siaga and Dr. Mitchell.
Well, all I can say to that is that they were both accused at various times of having the same links.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. All right, Mr. Bierzynski, you never forget, do you?
No, no, we must not forget our history, particularly when we are constantly being bombarded by the efforts of those so-called intelligentsia who are trying to rewrite history in order to whitewash their own actions.
Benedict Cador here says, methinks that no distinction is being made between the revolution and the counter-revolution. What say you?
I'm not sure whether the counter-revolution was the one mounted by Bernard Court against Bishop.
Benedict, you're going to have to be a little bit more specific so that Mr. B can take you on. Are you through, Mr. B?
Yes.
You, you were very brief this morning. Well, that's okay because I have a couple of things here I'd like to bring up with you. I want to pick your brain, if you will. Good?
Go ahead.
All right. Over the past few days, there's been a lot of talk about the progress being made by the NHI, National Health Insurance, and I know that you have picked on that topic in the past. The big question right now seems to be, how is this going to be funded? This week at consultation in one of the out parishes, I heard it mentioned that there are several options, a lot of options. Most of them have the word tax in them. They're talking about the personal income tax, they're talking about the value-added tax, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this thing has to be paid for, Allan. It has to be paid for. But because Grenada is still reeling under the recent austerity program imposed by the IMF, there are people who are saying, oi, 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 another tax, another tax. Meanwhile, there are others who are suggesting there are other options that could be pursued. I've even heard about a tax being imposed on visitors to the island. What say you, sir? Do you have any ideas?
Well, first of all, I was not aware that we are reeling under the impact of any austerity program. I was told, and I verily do believe, because I believe what comes out from the government, that we graduated, remember the term, we graduated from the IMF program in 2016 with flying marks. Flying marks? Flying colors.
Colors.
Yeah. And we have been held up internationally, according to us, as having had the best finance minister in the region, if not the world. You remember all of that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. So I am not prepared to accept that we are reeling from the impact of any externally imposed structural adjustment program. We did very well out of it. And as a matter of fact, we have been reporting consistently. We've been reporting surpluses in our half-year reports, which are generally made available in October or so of every year. I don't hear so much noise being made with regard to the full year outturn, but nevertheless, we know that we have consistently been collecting, I think, $60 million or more from the Citizenship by Investment program which is going into a transformation fund or something like National Transformation Fund.
Transformational
NTF.
fund.
Yeah. So I am not worried at all about where the funds are going to come from to fund the national health insurance. We win already.
You know, forgive me for seeing through your sarcasm, maybe, but I mean, the irony about this is that we have these surpluses which you're talking about, and yet when we cry out and say we need more being invested in healthcare, we need to pay out teachers and all of that, we're being told we don't have it.
So what am I to believe?
Well,
I mean,
I know you're not going to believe me, so.
The people who are making these statements are all honorable men in dishonorable house.
Some right honorables too. Huh?
And then when questions are raised in Parliament with regard to concerns of constituents, you have the dancing duo getting up and accusing people of being reckless and by inference unpatriotic when they question the quality of water.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So that's why I refer to it as
What
irony.
I would like to do is to encourage everyone to continue to express their concerns. Because in the absence of the expression of concerns, then we put the continuance of the rule of law in our society at risk. Just look at Dominica. You can't even hold a public consultation without it being surrounded by 3 truckloads of armed paramilitary police, and only invited individuals are allowed into this consultation. And this is against the backdrop of infrastructural development taking place with regard to the provision of low-income housing units. And it is being done in a most untransparent manner. I'm talking about what I've heard about Dominica. I want to make sure nobody take me up about. I'm not talking about Grenada.
Okay, B. Okay. Did you hear a conversation I had with Cashton Hood recently?
No, I did not.
Okay. I'm going to paraphrase here. Kaji was suggesting that, political parties really aren't serving us well, per se. And that really didn't surprise me coming from him, because we do this program, Make We Chat, which you have also appeared on. And time again, Beverly Sinclair and the rest of the suspects have been very vocal about the failure of, quote, political parties. And he was suggesting that perhaps we might be looking at another alternative where you elect individuals to run, and not because they're part of a party per se, because part of a party means you're supporting a specific ideology. What are you smiling at, Bierzynski?
Because I remember in 1992, a group of independent-minded individuals proposed something through a vehicle called the Initiative for Better Representation, which was suggesting precisely that, which means that within individual communities, notice I said communities and not constituencies, that people would come together and propose solutions to the problems that they had identified to be articulated by persons within the communities. Now, the reality is that it won't work for the simple reason that the electorate has become so used to being handed out scraps from the table of the rulers that it is highly unlikely that, given the present state of our educational achievement across the board, mind you, because there's no point in us having several hundred lawyers and a few dozen doctors and some engineers and everything else if the vast majority of the electorate is only concerned with how they go eat our food.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you.
So I'm sorry if this is more pessimistic than the Learned Council's view on the way forward.
But AB, isn't change something I've heard change being described as constant? Can't people change? You say that they're used to it. Yeah, I hear you. But can't they change, sir?
Well, if it is not in the interests of those who are in power to effect change, then how will change happen? But this actually, I'm going back to Edward Philip George Siaga. He said that progress is slow, but that in the absence of that legal framework, the rule of law, then the difficulty is that unless we correct these deviant signs that are still within the bounds of tolerance, what will happen is that problems will continue for many future years. Isn't it the reality that just like the Romans, whose empire fell because as people became more comfortable, they were more interested in circuses, games, public entertainment, spectacles? Does any of this seem to be reflected in what we see going on here weekend after weekend?
Okay.
Bread and circuses, that's it. And so you keep the masses in ignorance, but they are happy because they could eat our food.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Nobody is saying, where is the food coming from? Remember the famous saying in Parliament, you cannot bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so essentially, AB, you're putting the blame on the laps of the people because they're allowing it.
Yes, they like it so.
They like it so. All right, Mr.
As long as you can eat our food.
You know, as much as I enjoy talking with you and would like to keep you going for, hold on a minute here. Margaret says,
you have to get the natural report.
Exactly. I mean, come on. You understand? You understand? You understand? But before we do all of that, Margaret says, Allan, real change starts at the bottom. I think the question is the bottom ready, willing, and able to affect that change? Same thing we were just saying, B.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
So on that note, I will toast you and say bottoms up then.
Mags, you heard it, eh? That wasn't meant for me, Mags. That was meant for you, okay? Allan, you're right. We have to make way for the infamous national report. However, you mentioned earlier on in this conversation about, you suggested that you do have a good memory. Certain things you just don't forget. And as a result, I'm going to throw a curveball at you this morning. Remember some time ago, I'm sure you heard this week that we just got 5 more bikes for the police force.
You just got what, sorry?
5 motorcycles for the police force.
Oh, yes. Nice. So that they will be able to chase down miscreants on the road.
Right. Well, I'm sure you also remember having a photographic memory such as yours, sir, that a few months ago, several months ago, we received a number of... What are you laughing?
19.
Ah, we're
19 of them.
ambulances,
Motorcycle ambulances.
motorcycle,
Three. Yeah, yeah.
motorcycle ambulances. Whatever happened
I
to the?
actually, I actually went down to River Road on my scooter when they were assembling them, and the only person I found there was a mechanic assembling them, and I asked him where I could apply for a driving position since I had relevant experience. So he watched me stoops.
Alan, answer my question, sir. Whatever happened to those motorcycle ambulances?
Well, I think you would have to direct that inquiry to the what do they call them? The corporate communications officer in the Ministry of Health.
I was hoping you would have an answer for that, sir.
No, 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 no. You see, the reason I can't go looking for these things is that in the event that I found them and took photographs, I would run the risk of being charged for electronic crimes,
Yeah, yeah. And
for exposing.
I said, I know exactly. I know you're saying that as a joke, Alan, but I mean that's one of the realities we really have to face in this society today, and it's very unfortunate. All right, Mr. Bierzynski, your time's up. I mean, I've never said this to you, and I probably never will again, but because you're intruding on the GIS's time, I'm going to say thank you so much, sir. Congratulations on the effort you've made to recognize Mr. Bob Marley and tying that into the passing of
And hold on. And Edward Philip George
Siaga.
Siaga.
Yes, I was just going to say, tying it into the passing of Mr. Siaga. I do appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Amy. Good to see you, bro.
Okay, bye.
All right. Well, that was your dose for that was your dose of Bierzynski for this morning. Uh, Kipling Francis says you cannot put your laundry change in a pocket with hose and expect to keep it. Okay. Thank you, Kipling, and thank you, Mr. Bierzynski. Pilgrims, quick break. National Report.
My name is Jennifer James, and I've been making confectionaries for the past 7 years. Growing up as a little girl, I always wanted to make these little things. Fudge, sugar cake, tamarind ball, these little things. I read something actually, and it said that tamarind itself is very good because it eliminates fat from the liver. You get the mature tamarind and you crack it, you shell it out. I would add a little baking soda, some spices. I would leave it to rest probably for about 2 hours and then add my sugar and just start kneading. I usually knead it hard enough so that I can roll it. When I finish roll it, I will paste it with the actual white or brown sugar and you have a nice tamarind ball. I have been providing food fair with tamarind ball about 6 years now. I started producing tamarind ball to sell for the school children. I thought I could advance somewhere. So I went to food fair and I asked one of the salespersons there if they would be interested in selling my tamarind ball. And she told me yes. She told me to bring 20 packets to start with. It was really a joy for me because I wanted to extend on my little business. My name is Jennifer James and I work with the food fair to provide you with tamarind balls.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Quad Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank, and there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
New family of EC polymer notes launched. Details to this story and more in the national report. With the details to the news for Wednesday, May 29th, I am Rakisha St. Louis. Prime Minister Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, who is also the chairman of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank's Monetary Council, on Wednesday launched the new family of EC polymer notes. The new polymer notes are more resistant to dirt and moisture and therefore more durable than the paper notes currently in circulation. Dr. Mitchell hailed the occasion as historic, noting that the ECCB is the first central bank in the Caribbean to issue an entire family of notes on polymer. This is therefore a significant achievement for the bank and by extension for all members of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. The Prime Minister commended the Governor and the staff of the ECCB for the initiative.
The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, to me, is creating history today. I'm therefore heartened to be part of this occasion. The ECCB is the first central bank, if we didn't know it, in the Caribbean to issue an entire family of notes in polymer. This is therefore a significant achievement for the bank and by extension for all members of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Today's launch of the new family of EC polymer notes provides a clear demonstration of the bank's leadership, innovation and commitment to protecting our currency.
Wednesday's launch included the unveiling of the newly designed $50 note, which now bears the image of former ECCB Governor Sir Dwight Venner, who served in that capacity for 26 years. Dr. Mitchell said Sir Dwight must be recognized for the tremendous contribution he made to the ECCB and to the region.
Today's event therefore takes on added significance because it also marks the launch of the newly designated $50 note, which now includes a portrait of the former governor of the ECCB, the late Sir Dwight Venner, and in honor of his legacy and service to the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. So Dwight must be recognized for the tremendous contribution he has made, giving human service to the ECCB and to the region as a whole. The Council is therefore pleased to unveil this $50 note in his honor and in his memory.
An encapsulated $50 note was presented to Sir Dwight's widow, Lady Linda Venner, who attended the launch, which was streamed live to other member states of the Currency Union. Still with news from the ECCB, while the EC polymer notes are being introduced, its phased introduction will mean that paper notes will still be in circulation. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank on Wednesday unveiled the $50 note, which bears the signature of Grenadian Governor Dr. Timothy Antoine for the first time since he was appointed to the position in 2016. The launch of the polymer notes is in keeping with the ECCU's 2017-2021 strategic plan focused on transforming the ECCU together. Polymer banknotes are produced from a thin, transparent and flexible plastic film, which gives it high security value. They are resistant to water and other liquids, resistant to dirt and moisture, and are eco-friendly. ECCB's Governor Dr. Timothy Antwine said although the polymer notes are expensive to produce in the first instance, the overall cost of production and handling is reduced in the long run.
Polymer notes are more cost-effective than paper. Although polymer notes are more expensive to produce up front, their extended lifespan means that the notes are replaced less often. Consequently, there will be a reduction in transportation and handling costs, thus reducing the overall cost of cash for the ECCB, commercial banks, and credit unions. As part of our due diligence, the ECCB consulted with colleagues from the Bank of England, the Bank of Scotland, and the Bank of Canada about their experiences with changing from paper to polymer. Compared to paper notes, polymer notes are cleaner, resistant to dirt and moisture, more secure. They have advanced security features which make them harder to counterfeit. More durable. They last at least 3 times longer than paper.
Dr. Antwine says the new banknotes will be circulated in phases before the current paper notes are completely eliminated. The ECCB will reduce the $50 notes first, followed by the $100, $20, and $10 notes by September of this year.
Both our paper and polymer notes will be in circulation at the same time. And I want to assure you that they are both legal tender. So you don't need to rush to the bank and bring in your paper to get polymer. They will, and let's be clear, there is no point at this stage in destroying absolutely good paper notes. That will be wasteful and irresponsible. So we'll use them until their natural life ends and we will replace them. So for a period of time, we will have both. And they are both legal tender, so just be assured of that. In respect of the rollout, our current projection is the $100, $20, and $10 notes will be issued around September. And I say around because depending on demand, it could be a little earlier, it could be a little later. And the $5 note around September next year.
This is the National Report. We'll have more news after the break.
The excitement builds for the Grenada Music Festival 2019. 3 nights of pulsating live music and great food. The festival kicks off on Friday, June 7th with Rhythm and Soul, featuring Freddie Jackson, Carrie Hilson, Eddie Bullen, Jefferson Ramirez and the Solid Band, and more. Saturday is Reggae Fest with performances by Busy Signal, Maxi Priest, Kamani Marley, and a special surprise guest. The festival climaxes on Sunday, June 9th with Soca Fusion featuring the All-Stars with Blacks and Teddyson John, Patrice Roberts, Was Ways, and many more. General admission Friday and Saturday $80. Sunday you pay only $60. Limited early bird, season pass, and VIP tickets now available at GoToFet.com. It's the most talked about event of the year, GMF 2019. June 7th to 9th. Get your tickets today.
Welcome back. Keeping the brain mentally alert by eliminating the use of calculators to solve math problems has its many advantages. Students are now putting these skills to the test in the Dennis Bell Mental Mathematics Quiz. The Southern Zone competition began recently. We get more details from Annette Moore.
The objectives of this competition are to encourage the teachers and students to engage in at least 15 minutes of simple mental arithmetic on a daily basis, including calculation strategies acquired in basic number facts, in addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, to consolidate and extend mental arithmetic strategies in calculations, to raise the achievement level in mathematics, and by extension all other subject areas, and to allow students to compete in an exciting and friendly manner throughout the school year.
Half of a right angle is joined to a straight line. What is the size of the new angle formed?
225 degrees.
Correct answer.
This competitive event consists of 4 sections, which are mental arithmetic, math jeopardy, and the bonus and power round. It takes place on 4 levels, namely the class, school, district, and national level. The winners at the various district levels represent their district at the national level.
The school that wins here will compete with the one that wins in the Northern Zone, and that winning school will move on to represent District 5. in the National Mental Maths Quiz.
GIS sat in on one quiz which took place at the St. George's Methodist School on May 22nd. 4 schools were represented at this event: St. George's Methodist, St. George's Seventh-day Adventist, South St. George Government, and the Mongeloo RC schools.
What is the place value of the 5 in the decimal 16.2351?
Thousands with a TH in the end.
That's correct.
South St. George emerged in the lead after that quiz. For the National Report, I'm Annette Moore.
That story just brought the curtains down on the National Report for today. Let's recap the top story. New family of EC polymer notes launched. On behalf of everyone here at the Government Information Service who made this newscast possible, I am Rakisha St. Louis saying thank you for joining us. Until next time.
Mouth Open Story Jump Out comes to Brooklyn and Washington, D.C., featuring the humor and storytelling of Ricardo Kings Douglas.
They say she comes all the way up here to Toronto to shop for cosmetics and go back down.
Roll back the years in Brooklyn with Lord Nelson. Also in the Brooklyn concert, Quick USA. And in Washington, Diane and Friends and Julian Moore. Washington, D.C., Saturday, June 8th. And Father's Day, Sunday, June 16th. In Brooklyn at the Tropical Reflection Ballroom on 4501 Glenwood Road from 6 p.m. It's the perfect Father's Day treat. Tickets, $30 in advance. Available at Eventbrite and popular outlets. Or call 347-350-4285 in Brooklyn and 240-460-0442 in Washington, D.C., Maryland. In Brooklyn, special guest, the Mighty Sparrow, will be joined by cultural ambassadors and preservationists to be recognized with New York State proclamations. They include Lord Nelson, Derek Vento, Heron Rockin' J. Douglas, Gentle Benjamin, Lambert, and the Matadors, and the Quake USA Cultural Organization. Additionally, 2 lucky patrons will get to stay free at the award-winning Blue Horizons Garden Resort in Grenada for 3 nights, including breakfast and a dinner at La Belle Creole Restaurant, sponsored by Tropical Reflection Ballroom, Blue Horizon Gardens Resort, The Petty Firm, Caribbean Times Newspaper, Dr. Derek Lezama, Century 21 Achievers Realty, Attorney Glenroy George, The Otley Law Firm, and Funk Media NYC. Washington, D.C., Saturday, June 8th. And Brooklyn, Father's Day. Mouth Open, Story Jump Out.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
It's been a good morning, folks, and we have come to the end of it. Our parting word from the Holy Scriptures today, Psalm 34, verses 11 to 16. Come, my children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. Whoever of you loves life and desires to see many good days, keep your tongue from evil, and your lips from telling lies. Turn from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are attentive to their cry. But the face of the Lord is against those who do evil, to blot out their name from the earth. That reading, Psalm 34, verses 11 to 16. My dear friends, you go in peace. Have yourselves a wonderful day in God's world. And by his grace, let's get together again tomorrow morning for this week's finale. God bless you.